Let's continue our integer models discussion by talking about subtraction. Okay, if we have a positive 1 and we're subtracting a positive 4, you can use chips to show this by beginning with a positive 1 chip. And we want to subtract 4 positive chips, but we only have 1 positive chip. So we can add a positive and a negative because that's equivalent to 0. And we can add another positive and another negative because that's equivalent to 0. And another positive and another negative because that is equivalent to 0. So in essence, we've added 3 zeros and not changed the value of the positive 1. Now we need to subtract positive 4, which we now have 4 positives, and we can subtract them, and we're left with 3 negatives. So positive 1 minus positive 4 is negative 3. So what does that look like on the number line? On the number line, it looks like this. If you begin at a positive 1, which is right here, and you're going to subtract, so you begin to go left, and we're subtracting positive 4, so that because it's positive 4, it doesn't change our direction. So we just subtract 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll see that we end up at a negative 3. Now, if we have a positive 1 and we're subtracting a negative 4, again we start with a positive chip and we want to take away negative 4 chips, but we don't have negative 4 chips. So like in the last problem, we added 0 by adding positive and negative chips, and we just keep adding positive and negative chips, which is 0, until we have negative 4 chips, which we have. And so now we can subtract those negative 4 chips, and what we're left with is positive 5 chips. And on a number line, that looks like this. Starting with a positive 1, and we're subtracting, so we begin to go to the left, but we're subtracting a negative, and that negative causes us to turn around and go the other direction, and so we need to go 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which has us ending up at positive 5. Then a negative 1 minus a positive 4, you begin with a negative chip, and again you can't subtract positive 4, so we need to add what's equivalent to 0 until we have 4 positives, and so that's 3 positives. Now we have 4 positives, and we didn't change the value because we've just added 0. Now we take away the 4 positives, and it leaves us with 5 negatives. On a number line, it looks like this. We start with a negative 1, which is right here, and we begin to subtract, and we're subtracting positive 4, so we continue in that direction, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we end up at a negative 5. Okay, our last scenario is a -1 minus a -4. And again, we'll start with one negative chip. And of course, we can't subtract 4 negatives because we don't have 4 negatives. So we're going to add 0 until we have 4 negatives. And that's 4 negatives right there. So we can subtract those 4 negatives. And we're left with 3 positive. And what does that look like on the number line? It begins at -1, and we're subtracting, so we begin to go left, but we're subtracting a negative, so we have to turn and go the other way. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, which ends us up at a positive 3. So let's recall some of our answers from our addition problems, and let's make some comparisons. Remember that +1 plus +4 is equal to +5, and +1 plus -4 is equal to -3, and -1 plus a -4 is equal to a +3, and a -1 plus a -4 is equal to a -5. Well, let's look at our problems and see if we can't find matches. So here's +1 minus +4 equals -3. Well, -3 is right here. So +1 minus a +4 is equal to -3. And then we have +1 minus a -4 is equal to +5. Well, +1 minus a -4 is equal to a +5. Then we have a -1 minus a +4 is equal to -5. Well, here's -1 minus a +4 is equal to -5. And finally, -1 minus a -4 is equal to a +3. So -1 minus a -4 is equal to a +3. So these two problems have the same answer. So they're equivalent. So +1 plus a +4 is equal to a +1 minus a minus or -4. And these two problems are equivalent. So a +1 plus a -4 is equal to a +1 minus a +4. And with these two, we have a -1 plus a +4 is equal to a -1 minus a -4. And finally, a -1 plus a -4 is equal to a -1 minus a +4. And so what do these have in common? Notice that the negative sign, or the minus sign, subtraction, became addition when and the signs are opposite. Subtraction becomes addition and the signs are opposite. Subtraction becomes addition and the signs became opposite. Subtraction becomes addition and the signs become opposite. And so addition and subtraction are related in that when you are subtracting integers, all you need to do is add the opposite. So subtracting is the same as adding the opposite. So turn those subtraction signs into addition, and you will only have to know how to do one operation. And that is all there is to it.